They didn't just fire him, they erased him. From a rising star on Wall Street to a man no one even notices. But what they didn't know was this. Some men don't break, they wait. New York City never sleeps. Lights stay on through the night, cars rush past wet streets, and people move like they're chasing something they can't see. In this city, dreams are made, and dreams are buried. For Ethan Cole, it did both. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., while Manhattan still breathes slowly, Ethan stands near a subway entrance in Queens. A thin coat hangs on his shoulders. His shoes are worn. His eyes look tired but alert. Once, people called him the future of finance. Now, they call him a security guard. He checks IDs at the entrance of a luxury apartment building. Rich tenants walk past him every day without looking twice. Some talk about stock prices. Some complain about small inconveniences. None of them know who Ethan really is. And none of them know what was taken from him. There was a time when Ethan Cole mattered. 5 years ago, he stood on the 32nd floor of Sterling and Knox Investments. A tailored suit, confident posture, a mind sharper than most men twice his age. He was only 29. Top graduate from NYU, full scholarship, fastest promotion in the company's history. Executives spoke his name with respect. That morning, the boardroom felt different, quiet, heavy. Richard Knox, one of the company's founders, leaned back in his chair and smiled. "This deal will change everything," he said. Ethan believed him. The deal involved a clean energy startup, revolutionary technology, massive future value. Ethan personally reviewed every number, every projection. Nothing was wrong. Until that night. At 11:47 p.m., Ethan received an email. It came from his own company account. Attached were documents showing fraud, insider trading, illegal transfers. His name was everywhere, but Ethan never sent that email. By the next morning, compliance officers were waiting for him. By noon, security escorted him out of the building. By evening, his face appeared on financial news channels across the country. A rising star exposed in a massive corporate scandal. Ethan tried to explain. No one listened. Richard Knox avoided his eyes. The board voted. Unanimous. Fired. Blacklisted. Within weeks, everything collapsed. Job offers vanished. Friends stopped calling. Bank accounts were frozen. Then Laura left. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. "I can't marry a man under investigation," she said quietly. Not anger, pity. That hurt the most. Ethan sold his car, then his apartment, then whatever pride he had left. At night, in cheap rented rooms, he stared at the ceiling and asked himself the same question again and again. Why me? The city gave no answer, only silence. Now, back in the present, a drunk tenant snaps his fingers in front of Ethan. "Hey, guard, open the door." Ethan opens it, not because he is weak, but because he is watching. Every night after his shift, Ethan returns to a small basement room. No television, no comfort, just a mattress, a desk, and an old laptop. Inside that laptop are files, notes, names, timelines. Because when Ethan lost everything, he learned something most people never do. When you have nothing left, you see the truth clearly. The fraud was real, but it wasn't his. He had been chosen, sacrificed, used to protect powerful men and billions of dollars. They destroyed his name, and they walked away clean. One night, as rain topped against the basement window, Ethan spoke softly to himself. He said he wouldn't rush. He said he wouldn't beg. He said he wouldn't scream for justice. He would rebuild. And when the time came, he wouldn't need to say a word. They thought Ethan Cole was finished. That a broken name and a forgotten face were the end of his story. They were wrong. Every night, after 12 hours of standing quietly at the door, Ethan returned to his basement room. While the city slept, he stayed awake, not watching movies, not scrolling his phone. He studied. Years ago, finance had been his strength. Now, information became his weapon. He taught himself skills no one at Sterling and Knox would ever expect from a security guard. Data analysis, corporate structures, digital finance trails, offshore movements, shell companies. Slowly, patterns appeared. Money never disappears, it only changes hands. And Ethan followed every hand. He discovered that the same executives who signed his termination papers were moving millions through hidden channels. Clean on the surface, dirty underneath. Carefully, quietly, patiently, months passed. Ethan's body grew stronger, his mind sharper, his anger calmer. Because rage burns fast, control lasts longer. One night, he received a message from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I know what they did to you." Ethan stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. "I worked in IT. I was told to delete files after your name went public." Ethan's heart slowed. Not from fear, from focus. They met in a crowded cafe in Brooklyn. The man was nervous, hands shaking, eyes scanning the room. "I couldn't live with it," he whispered. "You were innocent." He slid a flash drive across the table. On it, raw server logs, internal emails, timestamps, proof that the documents sent from Ethan's account were created on a different machine. Evidence. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to begin. Ethan didn't rush to lawyers. He didn't call reporters. That's what they would expect. Instead, he disappeared. Not physically, strategically. He quit his security job quietly. No drama, no goodbye. Just gone. Within weeks, Ethan was working again, but under a different name, a smaller firm, lower position, less visibility. Perfect. From the inside, he watched the market. He watched Sterling and Knox grow bigger, louder, greedier. They were confident, arrogant, untouchable. That confidence would be their mistake. Ethan started investing small amounts, smart moves, clean profits, enough to build credibility, not attention. People began noticing results, not his past, his performance. One investor asked, "Where did you learn to think like this?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Pain," he said. Months turned into a year, and then one morning as Ethan walked through a glass office lobby, this time wearing a suit again, he saw a familiar name on the financial news screen. Sterling and Knox Investments. Under investigation. Not public yet, not explosive yet, but cracks had formed. Ethan knew something they didn't. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about timing. Because the most dangerous man is not the one who strikes first. It's the one who waits until there's nowhere left to run. They had forgotten Ethan Cole. In their world, forgotten meant finished. But Ethan was closer than ever. A year had passed since he stepped back into the financial world under a different name. Not loud, not flashy, just precise. He worked inside a mid-sized investment firm where nobody asked questions, only expected results. And Ethan delivered. His predictions were clean, his strategies simple but deadly accurate. Profits grew steadily, trust followed. People didn't know his past, they only saw numbers. And numbers never lie. Late nights became routine, screens glowing in dark rooms, coffee going cold beside him. Ethan studied market behavior the same way he once studied his enemies, patiently, deeply. He noticed something most didn't. Sterling and Knox was bleeding. Not publicly, not yet. But the signs were there. Over-leveraged positions, quiet asset shifts, risky bets behind confident press releases. They were afraid. Fear makes people sloppy. Ethan made his first move without touching them directly. He placed small, legal positions against their weakest investments. Nothing dramatic, just pressure, like tapping cracks in glass. No one noticed. Then the pressure increased. Analysts at Sterling and Knox started working longer hours. Executives called emergency meetings. Shareholders asked uncomfortable questions. Still, no one said Ethan's name. That was the point. One evening, Ethan attended a private industry event. High ceilings, soft music, expensive suits. And then he saw him. Richard Knox. Older now, grayer, still smiling the same confident smile. Their eyes met for half a second. Knox looked through him, didn't recognize him. Ethan felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, only focus. That night, Ethan reviewed the flash drive again. He compared old server logs with recent transactions. Patterns aligned, timelines overlapped. He found the connection. A subsidiary in Delaware, quiet, invisible, registered under a shell trust. That's where the real money flowed. Ethan didn't expose it, he prepared it. He shared selective data with the right regulators. Not accusations, just questions, enough to force audits. The next morning, Sterling and Knox stock dipped 2%. Small enough to dismiss, big enough to hurt. Inside their headquarters, panic grew. Executives reassured investors. Lawyers drafted statements. Knox smiled for cameras. But behind closed doors, voices were raised. Someone had opened a door they couldn't close. Weeks passed. Investigations expanded. Partners pulled back. Lenders tightened terms. Ethan stayed quiet. He made money while they lost confidence. Then one night, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Ethan Cole? He stared at the screen. After all this time, someone remembered. I think we need to talk, the message read. Ethan looked out the window at the city lights. He typed one word. When? The call was no longer coming. It had already begun. The call came at dawn, not from a lawyer, not from the media, from someone inside. The voice on the other end was careful, controlled, afraid. You were right. Things are falling apart, the man said. Ethan listened without interrupting. Internal audits are everywhere. Regulators won't stop asking questions. Files we thought were buried are resurfacing. Ethan closed his eyes. This was the moment he had waited for. Not with excitement, with certainty. Why are you calling me? Ethan asked calmly. A pause. Because they're looking for someone to blame, and your name is being whispered again. Ethan smiled slightly. They won't use me twice, he said. The call ended. That morning, the first headline broke. Not loud, not explosive, just enough. Major investors began pulling out. Stock price slid. Confidence cracked. Inside Sterling and Knox, meetings turned into arguments, arguments into accusations. Trust disappeared. Richard Knox felt it. He sat in his office late into the night, staring at numbers that no longer made sense. Every move he made only made things worse. Someone was controlling the board. Someone invisible. Days later, Ethan was invited to speak at a closed-door investment forum. Small audience, powerful people. He walked in wearing a simple suit, calm, unremarkable. When he spoke, the room went quiet. He didn't mention Sterling and Knox by name. He didn't have to. He spoke about fragile systems, about how greed hides behind confidence, about how lies collapse under pressure. People listened. Some took notes. Others realized too late that they were already exposed. That same week, regulators froze multiple accounts connected to Sterling and Knox subsidiaries. The stock fell hard. phones rang non-stop. Richard Knox watched the ticker drop and felt something he hadn't felt in years: fear. Then came the email. Short, professional, from an address he didn't recognize. Subject line, correction. Attached were files, server logs, timestamps, internal emails, everything. Knox's hands shook. He knew this work. He remembered the young man who once stood confidently in his boardroom, the one they erased. Now he was back, not angry, precise. Knox requested an emergency meeting. Too late. The board voted again, unanimous. Richard Knox was removed. Charges followed. News channels didn't call it revenge, they called it justice. Ethan watched the coverage from his office. No celebration, no smile, just silence. Because this was never about destroying a man, it was about taking back the truth. And in that silence, Ethan understood something clearly. The strongest revenge isn't loud, it's inevitable. The city moved on. Scandals always fade. New names replace old ones. Another headline takes the spotlight. But some changes never reverse. Sterling and Knox became a case study. Business schools spoke about it in quiet classrooms. Analysts referenced it carefully. No one wanted to admit how close they had been. Ethan Cole was never mentioned, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Months later, Ethan walked through Central Park early one morning. No suit, no schedule, just fresh air and silence. The weight he had carried for years no longer pressed on his chest. He had his life back. Not the old one, a better one. He now ran a small but powerful investment firm. Clean, transparent, ruthless only with numbers, never with people. He hired those others ignored, gave chances where none were offered, because he remembered. Sometimes young analysts asked him how he learned to stay calm under pressure. Ethan never spoke about the past. He simply said, "I learned what losing everything feels like." And that answer was enough. One evening, as the city lights reflected off glass towers, Ethan stood by his window and thought about the man he once was. The one who believed too easily. The one who trusted the wrong smile. That man was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, quieter, unbreakable. Not because he won, but because he survived without becoming cruel. And that was the real victory. The world never heard his story, but the world felt its impact. Because true power doesn't announce itself, it moves silently and leaves nothing to prove. Ethan Cole never told his story, not on stages, not in interviews, not in books, because he learned something the hard way. The loudest people aren't the strongest ones. The strongest ones don't need to speak. Years passed, new towers rose, old names faded. The city kept moving the way it always does. One evening, Ethan stood alone on a quiet rooftop, looking at the lights below. The same city that once broke him now reflected back a different man. Not hungry for revenge, not desperate for validation, just steady. He had taken back what mattered: his name, his self-respect, his future. The people who destroyed him never heard his voice again. They only felt the consequences of their choices long after he had moved on. And that was enough. Because true revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's rising so high that their fall no longer matters. Ethan turned away from the edge and walked back inside. Not to escape the past, but because the future was waiting. And this time, nothing could take it from him.